Welcome everybody to the second Make With Me Google Hangout for the CLMOOC for 2016. And we're really happy that you're with us, and also all the esteemed guests that are on our Hangout tonight. I'm going to be kicking over in a minute to Helen and Susan, who are the facilitators for this Make Cycle Week. But I want to say that we've been having a lot of interesting, exciting kind of art unfolding through the various social media sites of CLMOOC this summer. And just want to say, too, that this is the 4th year of the CLMOOC. And the first 3 years were supported by the National Writing Project and Educator Innovator. And as they work on their Letters to the President project, which has been happening this summer and into the fall, we as participants and some past facilitators decided that we still wanted to keep the MOOC alive. So we've been kind of distributing the leadership and facilitation to a lot of different people. And so this week, Susan and Helen had stepped up, and so I'm going to actually send it over to Susan now to kind of bring us into this hangout, and we'll be meeting each other as we kind of move through the session. Susan?
Thanks. Thank you, Kevin. Bear with me. I've never done this before, so grateful that everybody who is on the panel agreed to be a part of this. You guys have been doing some amazing work, and our theme this week was reciprocating and gratitude. And the connections that are being made, I've just been overwhelmed by. Really deep connections, lots of breadth and depth all around, and we're just grateful that everybody was able to participate. And we're going to have a little break week next week, a little hint there, where you can take a breath and maybe focus on some things you didn't have time to do yet. We are going to do an interactive activity with our Make With Me Hangout tonight, and Helen's going to explain a little bit about that, and then we'll get started.
Okay. So this interactive activity is going to involve a piece of paper, and it's similar to Nick Susanna's grid gestures. So you can divide your paper into 5 whatever spaces, sizes you'd like. So if you divide it into 5 like or unlike spaces, and we chose 5 because it's sort of an awkward number to work when you're dividing papers. And then you can decide whatever you want to put, whatever number you're going to put in any of the spaces. So the first space you're going to, and I'm going to roll the dice, and in the very first space, you can put the number 1. And you can randomly mix the spaces up. The second randomly selected space will have the number 4. And the next space will have a 6. Two, and we have one more roll, and it's a number 4. So the only number we've left out is the number 5. Now for each of those, you can decide to embed an image. As we go through this Make With Me, we're going to give you a prompt. And you can, again, pick whatever space you want to put that number of things. So for example, first prompt, you pick whatever number you want, and it will be related to anything for your family. For example, I can say the number 4, I have 4 sisters. So I'm going to draw little stick people for the 4 sisters that I have. So again, anything to do with your family, to do with any one of those numbers. And we'll take it away, Susan.
Thank you. So we wanted to ask everyone to introduce themselves on the panel. And our first week we spent getting to know everyone. And one of the questions that we had was some of the people, some of you, Twitter handles or blog posts titles. We were curious where they came from. So if you could introduce yourself, and if you have an interesting story about why you named your Twitter handle the way it is, or why you named your blog the way you did, you can kind of inform us and let us know where that came from. So let's start with Deanna. She's muted, maybe?
I'm sorry, I meant to unmute, and I hit my camera instead.
Hi, Deanna.
My handles are all just my name, but my blog is meta writing because it's writing about writing.
And why did you choose that?
Because I write about writing, and I think about writing, and I write about thinking about writing.
So big picture. Okay. All right. Jennifer.
Well, my Twitter handle is really straightforward. It's just Jennifer Denslow. But my blog is on its probably third home now. I'm using Blogger. And when I started writing this one, I thought I was mostly going to focus on being a classroom teacher and teaching speech and drama. So that's why I chose speech teach.
Yeah. How about Kevin? Where did dog tracks come from?
Well, dog tracks came from, actually it's a really long story, but the short version is when I was growing up, I grew up in an apartment complex. We used to play football a lot on the field near our apartment, and I always seemed to be blocking for my friend who was a very talented athlete, and so the play we call was Red Dog, and I had red hair back then. So Red Dog was my nickname through much of my childhood. And then at a certain point when I was an adult and starting to try to do some 4-track recording, I thought, oh, dog tracks, like music tracks, but I'll make an X with it. And then right around the same time, I got my first email address, and I used it there, and then I got stuck with it forever. But I like it. So that's a kind of shortened version of where it came from.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Michael. Michael's taking a drink. That's a great idea.
Let's see. So Buste Bunch, it's alliterative. There's an interesting kind of family connection. My wife's also a teacher, and she calls her classroom the Buste Bunch, but I've been teaching 7 more years than she has. So I think just by default, I get to have Buste Bunch, and I probably, maybe I'll contact Twitter and see if I can get a verified account and trademark the name. So, so I just kind of make myself known as Buste Bunch. My blog is the Buste Babble. Once again, alliterative. And when I was kind of creating, I was thinking, that's what I'm doing. I'm just babbling.
I'm just happy to know how to say your name now.
It is a challenge.
All right, Ray, your Twitter handle is interesting. Where did that come from?
Well, it's difficult to pronounce.
Yes.
Silent. HSIFNIHPLOD. But it's actually a word spelled backwards. And if you spell it from the end to the front, it's dolphin fish. I chose dolphin. In the early I spent 4 years on a submarine, and the dolphin was the submarine force's sort of mascot and model and guard, because the name dolphin angels. Plus, dolphins, fish, is a mammal. It's just beautiful animal. But people refer to dolphins, regard as dolphin fish. Of course, there's embedded. That's where it comes from. Hello.
Yes, I'm You're breaking up a little bit. I don't know enough about the tech to know if there's any reason for it. But Grandma Sherry, I thought you were bowing out. I'm
Okay,
glad
what
you're
was
still here.
the last said?
About the submarine.
Yes. Maybe I'll just write it all out.
Okay.
There's some technical difficulty. Maybe I'll put it on my blog.
Okay, that sounds great. Perfect. All right, Grandma Sherry.
Okay, well, in 2007, my granddaughter was 13 and told me she had a Twitter account. So I figured if I was going to be a good grandma, I better monitor what she's doing. So my Twitter handle became Grandma Sherry. And she's now a wonderful 21-year-old granddaughter. And my blog is Ask What Else, and that's what I always ask my students when they're writing. What else? Ask yourself, what else do I need to add? Do I need more detail? Do I need more voice? What else do I need in my writing? So that's that.
Telio. Edify.
Okay, I've got 3 Twitter handles and 2 blogs, and I'm only interested in talking about one of them. So my blog, In Pedagogy, it comes from Richard Taylor poem called In Pedagogy, and I don't know if other states have this, but Kentucky has poet laureates, and some of them are pretty good poet laureates. I mean, people like Wendell Berry. And one of my colleagues at Western, Joe Servant, really good poets. And Richard Taylor's a really good poet. And in this poem, he talks about how he compares a Honda radio, and his son had a Honda car with a radio in it. And every time they hit a bump, the radio would go out, and then they hit another bump, and the radio would come on. And he compared that to teaching in the classroom, and except that his bump was not as reliable as the bump in the Honda. So he couldn't figure out how to create a bump in the Honda, in his classroom equivalent to that. And I think it's very much true for me in the classroom, is that it's a lot more complex than you get on some blogs that tell you 5 different ways to use this or that, or various listicle articles that seem to reduce teaching to, well, a list of things to do. And that's why I believe in impedagogy, in the practice of impedagogical teaching.
Do we need to do anything with the numbers at this point, Helen?
We can move on to the second number, whatever number you choose. Write or draw anything relating to food. So let's think in terms of food, favorite or otherwise, and attach it to one of those other numbers. And so for example, I can say 1, the number 1, and I'm going to say I had 1 hamburger for supper. And while you're doing that, the origin of my blog site, 5 Flames for Learning, came from all of the time sitting beside the fire, having to sit by the fire and share stories, horror stories, our life stories. We'd laugh, we'd cry, and when we left for the end of the weekend, we would be ready to go back to work and do whatever we had to do. But it was like that cathartic fireside chats that were sacred space for us. The blog came from.
Fires are so primeval. I love it. Well, this week is about reciprocation and gratitude. So we wanted to have people share a reciprocation that meant something to you, that touched you personally. There's been a lot of extended reciprocations that have gone on, lots of remixes. Jennifer Nussbaum's poem went viral practically. Lots of different things going on. So we were going to ask that you share something that meant something to you this week in terms of reciprocation and gratitude.
I'd like to start with that one just because you mentioned Jennifer's poem. I actually work with Jennifer. We're teammates at the same grade level at school, and for the past few years, I've been trying to encourage her to be an active participator. I think she's done some lurking in the past, and so she's an incredible teacher, an incredible person, and it was really fun to watch people react and interact and remix her work, and then be able to have those conversations with her in person. So all the people that were taking her writing and turning it into music, that was really cool. And and she's a musician too. I assume you probably could figure that out from looking at her work. And so it was really interesting to hear her talk about that. So that was just wanted to share that with you guys.
Have you gotten any feedback from her about her participation so far? I know you were trying to convince her.
In terms of actual feedback about it, I don't have anything specific, but I do know that kind of the attention that her writing and her blog posts has gotten certainly has shown her the power of this.
I think it's really incredible when you get a lot of people reciprocating and creating different kind of digital objects, like a SoundCloud object, right? Once it's turned into a SoundCloud object, then I get to use it for that cool tool that I use a lot, Ziga. So you just grab it from SoundCloud. So right now I'm working on a Ziga that has her SoundCloud. It's not even hers. It's everybody's SoundCloud. That they've created, and I'm hoping to have something done by the end of the week. But that it just opens so many doors. When you reciprocate, it just opens adjacent places and spaces that are not really predictable. Pretty cool.
Other people want to share what's meant something to you this week?
Well, I just got an email and a picture from Karen Belinda from a post that I did last year in the CLMOOC, turning an image she had into a poem. And it felt so good. She says, "Thank you for this. It really encouraged me." So I think that people don't realize how encouraging it is when you honor someone else and share their work. And so I'm really pleased that found poetry slideshow has 14 different quotes from people already honoring other people in their work. I know, Michael, you have one up there, and Kevin, for sure. So, it goes both ways.
Yeah, I was going to say that, I love that kind of project where, so not only people going out and reading closely what other people are writing and then using that to create a poem, but then we're coming back together again into the shared document, right? And kind of sharing together and kind of working on something collaboratively. So you have all these different kind of tendrils kind of going out, coming back in, and it's really a powerful experience, I think, and we hope actually more people will kind of contribute to that too as we kind of go along and keep mentioning it. And I think those kind of projects are like perfect CLMOOC kind of projects that you're honoring other people, but then collaboratively building something together too. And some of us were playing around with the Google Lego Playground site today that maybe others will jump into too. And there's another. It's not so much, I guess, honoring the people, but kind of descending upon a site as a group, a network, and trying to kind of play around and make sense of it.
So they took my CLMOOC off there.
I put one back in.
I know you did. That's great. I mean, the power of play, I think, is important. You know, we do a lot of serious stuff, but I think it's important just to play together and have fun and play with the tools and things like that. And that also means a lot. The Lego world is pretty cool. That music generator thing that Carrie posted, what's it called? P22. That's fascinating. I'm still trying to think about how to use that. And go ahead, Carrie.
I think that was Kevin who first put that out there.
Yeah, I think that actually came from last year. So, I mean, here's a good example. Like, this is Trail, because I forgot about it. And then Wendy from Australia reminded me of it when we were looking at Jennifer's poem together. And that had me revisit it, right? And then circle back around and share it back out again. And I think, you know, the paths of those ideas, I think, really fascinating to kind of talk through and map out, too.
And there have been a lot of those. Go.
I had a lot of fun with that. I ran the Bill of Rights through it, and then I messed around with you know, with it in all kinds of different ways you can mess with it, and then I created a civil rights Ziga for it where, you know, it wasn't that good, but you know, it was something new and different and made me think about civil rights in a different way, and you know, I just love the idea that we're all translating. We're translating from each other's works because it's so hard to read well, and it's so hard to get other people's intent and motivations as a reader, much less as a writer to get that down. And this is just all good practice. It's all worth doing, even if it's not technically. Some of it's not even writing. We're messing with sound, and I guess that's great.
Carrie, you always talk about close reading people's work, and Raymond, I noticed your comment. You know, that is especially when you're first getting into it. Don't worry about it. I got so much out of reading your blog, doing a close read of it, and learning more about you. And it's just a completely different focus when you're close reading it and trying to make something out of it, make sense out of it, and pull things out of it that resonate with you. And that was a fantastic experience for me, because just glancing over a blog is a completely different meaning-making experience than close reading it and really, really paying attention. And that's what this Make Cycle is about, is really, really paying attention to what people are doing.
I really agree with that. When I started writing my blog and people would actually comment on posts, it was one of the most thrilling things that there was really someone out there that I did not know personally that was reading what I'd written. But it's amplified when people read what you've written and then turn it into something that they've remixed and brought their own vision to, like Kevin's poem that he put in the Found Poetry Google Slides thing. It's really just this affirmation that someone has heard what you're saying. It's one of the coolest feelings.
I have to agree with you, Deanna. It's really a pump when somebody does a substantial response back to something you've written. I will never forget when I first made the commitment to start blogging and to have someone that I respected in the blogging world take notice, and he's you know, he reblogged almost his own blog post as a response to my blog post, and it was very how was that, exhilarating to hear some of my own words echoed back from someone that I respected, and it was a way of being honored. It was a nice feeling. got you, I can take a moment, and we're going to go on to the next number 4, since we had 2 sets of 4s. And this number 4, you're going to draw or write something that you did today. For example, I spent 4 hours in the car driving today.
Talking about what Jennifer was just mentioning about just having anybody notice what you're doing. You know, I think a lot of times we feel like we're just writing into a void, or creating and making into a void. And I know Deanna's YouTube little mini video she made today of the Tanka poem. That was just really, really cool, and it meant something to take inspiration from even a tiny piece of anything that I've done and created something. I think that's a great feeling. You know, you just feel like something has been validated. You know. Deanna, I don't know how you feel about this week.
Well, I love all the interconnection. Like somebody, has a flash of an idea, and then, that inspires something else that you do. What started my poem was a graphic that Kevin had created for Wendy, I think. Put it in my... And I saw the image, and I thought, it'd be really cool to write a poem. And so I actually did a Twitter search of the CLMOOC just of images, and it was really funny how many images are things that fly in some way, shape, or form. And so that's what inspired that poem, was to think about, the dandelion seeds flying, the lightning bugs, butterflies, owls. And then it just, it wasn't the direction I started, but that's what happens sometimes when you're playing with ideas and images and inspiration.
Especially when you're a superhero.
I took one of Deanna's posts and wrote a post of my own called "How to Steal a Poem and How You Can Too," and what I did was I grabbed her image and then I messed around with it with Snagit. That's my image manipulator that I use the most, and I started cutting words out of it using that, and messed with it some more. And that's part of the creative process. Is you got to be willing to. Sometimes the project has to get a lot messier before it gets a lot cleaner. And out of all the words in her word cloud, I pulled out several, and I stole them, and I made a poem. Sorry, Deanna. I said I didn't know whether I'd done justice or injury to your image, but frankly, I didn't care. And I think there has to be a way where you're a little bit of a pirate, where you go out, and Austin Kleon talks about that all the time, stealing stuff. Abby Hoffman's book from the 60s, Steal This Book. It's all, being creative there's very little that's new out there, but there's an awful lot of variation that's available for us to do. And if you've got enough of a repertoire, and it doesn't take much, maybe 2, 3, 4 tools where you can translate and shift them around, and a lot of times it just ends up being messy crap, but sometimes things turn out right. And so Deanna, thank you for giving me the raw material for the poem that I got from there. And then at the end of the blog post, I invited people to mess around with it some more using HackPad. So, to me, that's what this week is about. Is maybe sometimes the collaborations are unbidden. Maybe sometimes they are. Sometimes they're invited. Sometimes they're not. It's you know, anytime you have collaboration, you have to honor those who are participating, and I think you know, I think we're well started on that, and I'm really grateful for you all doing that this week.
Well, and
Yeah,
I think that's funny that what started it all was I just didn't have a really good idea for an image to put on my blog, and so I just created, you know, a word cloud of the text of the blog post, which a lot of those words came from other people's blog posts.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it started as a collaboration.
Yeah. And for me, it was just it was too busy. I couldn't, you know, there was just so much there that I had to make it more legible. And that was the whole process of making it more legible. And finally, oh, looky there, there's a poem there. You know, and it never would have happened had you not started it. You know, and if we had not had this MOOC cycle of reciprocation, you know, see, these adjacent possibilities are just everywhere. And if you all hadn't gotten together and organized CLMOOC in this summer, you know, there's so many things that had to happen in order for that to happen. And that to me is that order of complexity is just wonderful. Thank you all.
Well, I think our hope was to focus more on the process, you know, and let the reciprocation process be what this make cycle was about. I felt the same way when I remixed Ray's blog post. I didn't know if I was doing him harm. I didn't know how he'd feel about it, but I know that I got a lot of meaning out of it. And Terry, I enjoyed seeing the process that you went through because you documented, you know, where you started with Deanna's poem, word cloud, and where you ended up, and the messy part in the middle. And it was fascinating for me to see that process. And one of the things I like about CLMOOC are those process posts, even though I'm terrible about writing them. I like reading them.
I mean, I think those process posts are the most important ones we can write for uncovering our own process, but also sharing within, you know, the community we're in. So, I mean, I love reading those. I think that it helps you get into the mind of the person and what are we thinking, and then how can that help shape my thinking for when I try it too. So we're teaching each other.
And I think that's why Deanna's first Superwoman post really caught my attention, because there were so many things in that first one that connected to, it was like an aha, I can do that with my students. I think this one I can apply because it might work, like the 6-word stories. I thought, what a great way to do an introduction. And I hadn't even thought of that before. And it's a quick and it's an easy, and it'll really, that one, yeah, I'm stealing that one. I'm going to use it. Thank you, Deanna.
Well, I said already, all teaching is stealing.
Mm-hmm. So while I have you, we have another number. And this number, you can do either words or images or icons. Your favorite sacred space to be. So that's a safe and a joyful, the place you really want to be when you need those kind of emotions. And as we start that, I think what we'll do is just move into another prompt, a discussion prompt, or something we can talk about. And we talked about the reciprocating with gratitude. I'd like to talk a little bit about Christine Hendricks' blog post about the Summer of Tears and Hope. And the prompt here is, how do we as individuals, members of the CLMOOC community, real lives, or the real lives of our students, the digital life, the digital spaces that we work and share in. And Christina just did it so beautifully for me in terms of that one image that she posted on that blog site. A very meaningful way of connecting real world events to her own emotions. How do we do that for ourselves or for our students?
Well, Kevin's been prompting me to jump in about my World Peace game, so I'll do a quick summary of that finally. John Hunter, there's a TED talk that he did about a World Peace game simulation that he does for fourth graders, and he has been doing that for 28 years, and now he travels the world and does it in all different countries and things like that. I read the book, I watched the talk, I expected the book to be more prescriptive, I thought it would have forms and things like that. Well, no, none of that is there. So we kind of had to wing it and figure it out for ourselves, and our students are alt school kids. They've been kicked out of their home schools. John Hunter lists a bunch of traits that kids need in order to play the World Peace game. None of our kids have none of them. My co-teacher luckily trusts me and was willing to jump off that cliff with me, and the way that we structured it. But basically, he gives them 50 world crises to solve. We chose 20, which ended up being just outside of their comfort zone. So we did accomplish that. But having them learn about things they've never learned about in the real world before, immigration, the environment, pollution, teaching them how to do a business meeting. These are kids who can't even sit in the same room together without being aggressive or using profanity and verbal abuse. So we structured it so that every class period was a business meeting. And it actually ended up being very successful because of the way we structured it, but also because they connected that to the real world. And there were real world problems. They're hearing about the wall that Trump wants to build. They connect that to the immigration crises that we have in our simulation. And they took it very seriously. There's a lot of writing and communication involved, and they had little mailboxes and things like that. We didn't really think it was going to work, but we kind of jumped into it and did the best job that we could. We're going to do it again next year. But I was extremely proud of the kids and happy with the fact that we made it so real world that they really couldn't avoid it. They couldn't avoid interacting and learning how to do it. So it was a pretty cool experience. I recommend that you read his book and watch his TED Talk and see what you can do with it. I'm hoping Kevin is able to figure out how to do it with his kids. He's got more classes than we do, I think. So,
yeah, I just finished the book yesterday,
okay.
I think it was. So, and I ordered his film, so I'm hoping that'll help me visualize a little more. But yeah, I think that idea of immersing students in those kind of issues that are plaguing our world, really, that in some way we have to find entry points for those kind of discussions. We should mention too that part of what the National Writing Project is doing is their letters to the president to provide a publishing space for high school students in particular to get their voice into the political stage in our United States election this year. So if you're looking for opportunity for students, that might be something to check out.
So how else can we bring what we're doing into the real world?
I don't know. I'm assuming that a lot of you are familiar with Pernil Rip's Global Read Aloud. So the idea is that it's one book, or now for the past few years it's been many books for an author study to unite the world. And one of the stories last year is kind of more for middle readers, was Fish. And I'm actually kind of looking up the author right now. I can't remember the author, but it's about immigration and losing your homeland. And, it was just kind of a perfect tie-in to things that were happening, in places like Syria and Turkey. Obviously, the things are happening still today, and it's a much larger issue now. But it was a way for our students, and I work with academically gifted kids, and they come in with this extreme passion about lots of things, and they have empathy for so many things that are going on in the world, but they often feel powerless on how they can, what's the solution, and it really stresses them out sometimes. So having pieces of literature, quality pieces of literature for them to kind of deal with those emotions is a nice piece.
I think we got a lesson the last couple of weeks about how we bring the real world into the, well, the virtual into the real with Pokemon Go, and I got a little bit more than I bargained for in reading about this, and because there was an article, I forgot where it was, tweeted about it, about how Pokemon Go is redlined, so it doesn't go into certain areas in certain cities like they outlined Detroit, and so we've got real issues of real world issues in virtual worlds as well, with the biases that go into building these games. It just blew my mind again. But that's since we are translating so much more from real world into virtual world, literally like Pokemon Go, we're just mapping characters, branded characters from Nintendo onto the real world with augmented reality, and as phones get better and better, it's only going to become more common and easier to do and better, better as far as more realistic. So, as teachers, this is an incredible, both an opportunity and a scary, like most opportunities, it's kind of scary at the same time. How is this going to work in the classroom? And I'd say maybe it's not going to work in the classroom, that it's going to completely bust open the doors of the classroom, the windows out, and it'll be something that I don't even know if we call it classroom activities. I don't even know, what do we call it? It's incredible learning. What else could have gotten kids outside exercising? But this, who's devised a curriculum that would do in a year what Pokemon Go did in a week? I don't know. So it's a great question, and one that's we're just now bumping up against seriously right now.
I'm really interested in the number of conversations that Pokemon Go, not just in CLMOOC, but apparently our gym is my church is a Pokestop. And so one night we drove down Main Street, and I couldn't believe the number of people sitting on our church's front steps. And that immediately started a conversation amongst church leaders so how can we use this to get people inside the church? And, there's similar things, because when I drive my son downtown to play Pokemon Go, we always drop him off at the courthouse. And, it's a similar thing. He spent more time at the courthouse this week than anywhere.
And we had talked about the historical sites on Pokemon Go. There's historical information about each of the sites in my town. It's very historic. So you're learning about the sites as you are hitting the Pokestops. So there is an educational component built in as well as the exercise part of it. There are definitely some positives to it, and businesses are definitely using it because a lot of the businesses are Pokestops. The businesses that are welcoming the players are doing better than the businesses that are banning the players. So.
Yeah, and there are libraries as well.
Yeah, well, and it's very, very social. When I take my kid downtown to play, he's often meeting up with friends deliberately, they've arranged to meet there to play, but he will then often run into other people that, that also were there at the same time, and so they're traveling around in their little packs, walking around downtown in the evening. And, I live in a little small Kentucky town where the sidewalk pretty much rolls up at 5 o'clock. So it's very exciting to see the sheer number of people downtown just socializing and enjoying our town.
Yeah, I was downtown on 2 different nights. One night, the Pokemon Go servers were down, and it was your scarcely populated downtown. The next night, Pokemon Go was back up, and it was completely covered with people walking around and talking to each other and things like that. It's a stark difference. So it's getting people out and interacting. I saw some soldiers were in the park playing, and there's a group of teenagers that they ended up having an hour-long conversation with. They would never have talked to them before, but they were both playing the same game and ended up, having a meaningful conversation about the military and things like that. So it's all very interesting.
I mean, I also hope that, that the pivot point becomes where we figure out how students can do versions, make it their own versions. And I worry about all the branding, stuff. I know there's a lot of worries, and we don't have to go over all that. But, the pivot point of trying to figure out, okay, so you played this game all summer, right? How can we do a version in our school or whatever it is? And I know there are ways you do that because there are AR apps already out there. And so maybe it's a reflection point to think about how to pull that interest that's already there and make it a meaningful learning experience too, without ruining the fun of it, which we
We've
teachers
already
do a lot
talked
of.
about doing a writing walkabout using Pokemon Go as opposed to a map we give them.
I just had a meeting with our librarian, and we have GPS, and we're talking about how do we use the geocaching concept to create like a Pokemon Go type of activity curriculum for the kids, because now that they've done it, they'll be more apt to kind of connect to it and understand what we're talking about. We did geocaching last year, but they were kind of a little bit lost, and I think this will make it mean something more to them.
Okay, I'm going to jump in with the final number activity. We have one, and I'm aware that we're getting close to the top of the hour. So the final number is going to be what connection, an image, a word, icon connected to the CLMOOC community activities that you've done in the last week and a little bit, or from previous CLMOOC activities. Again, any icon image then that would match that number and connect it to CLMOOC. And I'll put in a final plug as you're starting this final number activity to add your quotes, your inspirational thoughts into the newsletter. There is a Reciprocate with Gratitude survey. It asks you to share a quote or a statement that captures an expression of generosity or gratitude. It doesn't have to be connected specifically to the CLMOOC, but it could be any expression of generosity or gratitude that you can share with the CLMOOC community. And what we'll do is we'll capture all of these and reciprocate with gratitude back to the community when we've collected them. And Susan, there were a couple of other thoughts. Oh, the sharing a poem.
Right, we have
the
some
slideshow. Yes.
Yeah, Sherry's slideshow is one of our playgrounds where we would like everybody to add in their poetry. We have a couple of different things going on. So, the daily connects, really, they're quick and easy sometimes, and you can really get connections made with those. Karen had put out the Cal remix, 2.6, and we would love to see some more cows out there. We need cows. We have the postcard project going on. We still have Silent Sunday, which some people didn't know about, which I was surprised. So that's an ongoing thing. We do that all year long. So there are a lot of playgrounds going on. I also wanted to note that Ray had taken the tags activity and was really reaching out to people that were kind of on the outer edges. And if there are ways that we can bring people in who aren't in that central node, and I'm probably using the wrong words because I don't understand any of that stuff, but I thought that was really cool the way Ray really took the time to find people and make connections with them. Because we want to bring in as many people as we can. who might be reluctant or confused or overwhelmed or.
He just reminded us to ask you to add your blog, if you're blogging as part of CLMOOC, to add your blog to the blog list, and it's listed in the newsletter as well. So any final thoughts? Is there anything from your little graphic that you'd like to share as a final thought, or anything at all?
Anybody willing to share their pictures?
There's Terry.
I'd like to see a bigger version. Can you talk into it?
That's my boogie board, and I'll have a video version of this to put out, and I'll put it on my blog so you can see it there.
Excellent.
Kevin, you have to talk.
Oh, am I on? What am I talking about? What I did?
About your yep.
My one was our dog. Let me see. I won't do them all, but number 6, I was trying to struggle with the 6. I think that was the one where we asked like your emotional space. So I used my guitar, 6 strings.
Oh. Nice. Who's that? Michael.
So I put in 6 stars, and it's really 6 plus, and those represent the number of bookmarks that I've made over the past week and a half. And you know, it's a new website, it's a new app, it's somebody's blog. It's amazing that just a short amount of time, just the new learning. And you know, probably 50% of those things I might use only one time, but at least I've given it a try. The place I put in for number 1, the one place that I kind of find that solace, is in Feedly. So all of your writing shows up there. A lot of the people's writing from CLMOOC shows up there. It's a place where I go to read and to learn and to think and reflect.
Anybody else want to share any of their?
Well, I tried to use the stars as people, but it didn't go so well. I used 4 stars to represent my family. So they're probably less bad than if I'd done for 6-figure people, but oh, and I used 1 owl for my single CLMOOC.
Cool. We love owls. They're wise. Just sent out some owl postcards. All right. So do we? Oh, there goes Sherry. Go.
You're muted, Sherry.
Well, the last one was the only number I had left, and that was for CLMOOC, so one connected community, and there we are, all connected.
Nice.
So final thought. Oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh, thanks. Well, someone commented about their lunch being a hamburger, and so I drew the hamburger that I had for lunch yesterday. So there you go.
Perfect. I had fries and a hamburger for lunch.
Perfect. I'm just going to extend my gratitude for each of you being here with us tonight. Susan and I ventured into something new this time, this week, and we're really glad that you joined us in this tonight. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
You can post your, you can take just a picture of it, and I think, Susan, you mentioned that we've got a Padlet that people can
Yes.
share their, and for those who may have been watching, or those who want to do this after they've watched, the Padlet will be available, and you can post your little number activity up and there if you'd like. Invitational.
Awesome, and I'll tweet out the Padlet link also.
Yeah, we'll turn it back to Kevin or Karen for your final thoughts before we call it a night.
Okay, I'll just do a couple little housekeeping things. I want to really thank Susan and Helen and the whole CLMOOC community for already all the great stuff that's happened this week. I think this this idea of reciprocating with gratitude and generosity is just a really lovely theme, and I'm excited about how many things it's already kicked off, and it's just Tuesday this week. So thank you all for your work. Just a reminder that we will have a Twitter chat on this same topic on this Thursday at the same time as this Hangout, so 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern, and consult your local time zone. Toward the end of the week, be thinking about reflections on this week, and we often do the Find 5 Friday activity of finding 5 things over the week that were an inspiration for you, so feel free to post those. Next week we're having a break week, so this is something new for CLMOOC, where we're going to take a week and not have a new theme, but just give people an opportunity to take a breath and think about what we've done and catch up on anything that you wanted to do that you haven't, and or go in new directions. And we'll be continuing to share through the week on all of our social media platforms, and we'll have a Twitter chat as well. But I'm excited about that. I have a list already of things that I want to get back to, so I'm going to be doing that. And then our final week will be the first week in August. And I say the final week, but I think one of the nicest things about CLMOOC for me in the last couple of years is that we've really extended a lot of these conversations through the year, and I know many of us have made strong connections and kept the CLMOOC conversations hashtags going through the year. So we look forward to that. And it is not too late to join CLMOOC. Anytime. If you want to get the email newsletters, there's a sign-up form on clmooc.com. All of our newsletters and activities are posted there, as well as links to our many social media communities, and feel free to dip into any of those as makes sense for you, and don't feel like you need to try to follow everything, because none of us can do that. And it's liberating to know you can just kind of pick and choose what makes sense. So thank you all so much for being here. This has been a great conversation, and we will see you on the interwebs all over.
Join us for the Twitter chat. Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Great seeing everybody.